Hey Sarah, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm just going to be hosting today's event, just because Bilal is a little bit busy. Just let some people in. So happy for you to kick off whenever you are ready.
Brill. So there's quite a lot we can cover with the session, so I'll try and give it a structure. But I think what I would love, given that Bilal's not here today, is maybe hear from you guys as well, who's on the call. So I know we're going to concentrate a bit on cold calling and specifically when you're sort of going through an interview process, if a company says, okay, one of the tasks is to cold call. What do you do? How do you do it? What's the best opener? So that's one of the things we'll cover. Another thing I wanted to cover was how AI can actually help you not only prep for cold calling, but throughout your whole interview process, and not just ChatGPT, but specifically something called Sesame, which I'm not sure if anyone's heard of, but we'll sort of cover what that is as well. And then just in terms of interview processes, I wanted a Q&A. So just understand what hiccups you guys are getting, where you feel you're a bit stuck, going through those different stages. And yeah, so I think I'll kick it off. And then, as I said, I'll just open it up to you guys. And if Bilal then hops on the call, we have someone who can just sort of uh, liaise how we want to structure it. But we'll try and sort of wing it for today.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I think it sounds like a great structure. And guys, if you have any questions, please ask Sarah. And yeah, like happy for you to kick off. Don't forget to take lots of pictures, guys, and post your insights on LinkedIn too to thank Sarah too.
Amazing. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know as well, I have like a mentorship page and a podcast that's recently launched. It's called Next Gen BDR. So if you just want to follow that or listen to the podcast as well, we're going to release quite a good episodes, me and Yasmin. So just yeah, stay
Yeah,
tuned. But
amazing.
alongside Break into Tech, obviously, we have so many more sessions planned. So anyway, focusing on the cold calling piece. So I know there's so many companies out there, so I'm just going to focus maybe on my company, which yeah, potentially might hire in the future. You never know. So this is maybe helping you guys prep for that stage where you might cold call. But the way I like to sort of structure it, we spoke about medic last time or medpic, there's so many different acronyms to it. But the good thing is medic can also help you when you're cold calling to give you somewhat of a structure to prep your opening. But it can also help you in the interview process when you're sort of selling yourself. So if we focus on Deputy, as I said, I don't know if you guys know what the product is, but we support businesses with workforce management. So any businesses that have, say, hourly workers, we support them with their rota building, time and attendance, so anything to clock in, export that into a payroll system, and it just supports them, one, to possibly lower labor costs, and two, save time, which also is part of that. But time is a massive piece, and obviously the pain of spending all that time scheduling. So I did create a few openings and I've written them down and saved them. But what I wanted to highlight was one specific, which is I'd say I change my openings every now and then, but the structure you want to try and maintain, and this is where Medic then feeds in, is you need to give a metric. Customer success stories are key. So always look up on the website of the product you want to work for. Do they have customer success stories? Usually any page in tech has a specific area on their webpage where they highlight a customer story, a percentage of what, their software helped them solve, what pain, and specifically in terms of metrics. So, what was the actual, I don't know, in my case is lowering labor costs, but in another companies it could be increasing revenue or increasing average deal size or whatever that may look like. So it's dependent on the company, but always look for that page because it gives you a good insight not only on what is the business actually doing, but who's the business helping. And if you name drop customers as well, they'll appreciate that because it means you've done your research and you know who they work with and you know what they've solved. So it just puts you maybe a step ahead. And I've never really done this before, but recently I've sort of looked at our customer pages and I use that when I'm prospecting. So I bring that up quite often to say, oh, did you know you're in hospitality? We've solved X, this problem for, say, Honest Burgers or whoever. And it just helps you sort of build credibility as well. So a good opener, for example, could be obviously saying, hi, my name's Sarah. I sometimes say, how are you? I brought this up last time. Um, it depends. It might work and it might not work. If it's pure cold call, not everyone's maybe open to saying I'm okay. But it sometimes does work for me. So I always give it a go and I test and try. But you have a feel on the call if, the person's open or if they're just really busy and they don't want to speak. So in that case, maybe you won't position the how are you, but you can say, hi, my name's Sarah, calling from Deputy. I always like to say I appreciate I'm calling out the blue because it's transparent. It's the reality. Like you're calling them out the blue. They're not expecting your call. They might not want to take your call. And then the thing I always like to highlight is, can I tell you the reason why I'm calling? If it's not relevant, you can absolutely just tell me to disappear. Completely weird and different way of positioning it, but different sometimes works. Maybe you laugh a bit when you say that. You just make it a bit of a joke, or you can just say you can just hang up. So feel free to do that with no sort of, yeah, don't feel bad if you want to do that, just do it. And then the way I like to open it, as I said, is utilizing metrics. So if I'm calling a business in hospitality and I've done my research on the customer success stories that Deputy solves, I know that Deputy's helped Honest Burgers reduce labor costs by 23%. So my opening line in that case can be like, we've helped Honest Burgers reduce labor costs by 25%. Can you relate to that? Is that something that you're currently struggling with in your business? And that's just a good opener because one, you have metrics. So you have numbers. Data is really important when you're cold calling. Even a small percentage catches the ear. Words, so many words. We type so many words. We speak so many words, but numbers might stand out more. Customer success stories, as I said, name dropping. It's a good way for competition to say, oh, you know what? They work with someone else, quite a big name in the industry as well. So if they've solved their problem, maybe they can solve ours too. As I said as well, from an interview perspective, it just means you've done your research and they'll appreciate that because you've looked into the company, you've looked into people they work with, actual pains they've solved. And I'm telling you, 95% of companies nowadays have customer success stories or somewhat of we work with these people. And then, as I mentioned as well, the tell me to disappear or just feel free to hang up, that's just a good way to position it because it's just being transparent. And I think transparency is key when you're in sales and being straightforward as well. So based on this, keen to understand from you guys, have you, had an interview where you've had to prepare a cold call? What struggles did you find? Did you utilize the customer success stories from their websites? Or was it more of just a struggle in terms of the opener or moving forward in the conversations? Where did the problems pop up? And I'm happy to we can do a bit of a back and forth there.
Guys, feel free to either type them in and I can read them out for you, or, put yourself off of mute if you're feeling brave.
Everyone's shy. Okay, that's fine. So we talked about Medic, right? We concentrate on that now. So Medic obviously is a framework that we use in sales, and it's not a checklist, it's a framework. We said this last time, but it's really important and it's important to sales leaders, it's important to companies. It just makes you more credible and it gives you that common language and just a bit of a framework to go by, not only when you're qualifying as a BDR or AE, but even post-sale as well. It's a really powerful tool to use. But you can use it as well when you're interviewing. So the way I see it is, when it comes to metrics, the metrics are, what you've solved in your previous role. So, for example, metrics could be for myself. At Deputy, I reduced average sales cycle by 18%, exceeding quota by, I don't know, this amount. Metrics help you give a clear, as I said, numbers speak, data talks, especially in sales. People have KPIs, people have numbers, so it's always good to give a realistic amount and incorporate that in the conversation. the economic buyer, understanding who's the hiring decision maker, who's the final person you're going to go through that's going to say yes or no. Have you ever thought about who that is? It might not be the hiring manager. It might actually be the head of sales or the CRO that gives the final thumbs up. The hiring manager might, however, be your champion. So it might be that person you want to impress and you want to show that you're the best fit. But even if he adores you, there's the economic buyers, the one that's then gonna sign that off. So even just understanding that whilst you're interviewing can be super helpful. And LinkedIn can help you, especially with job posts. You can see who the hiring team is. You can do a bit of research. You can contact reps that are internal to the company. They might be able to give you some feedback. So that's how I got feedback when I was joining Deputy from someone who was part of the sales team. I just got in touch with them and said, "Hey, can I know more?" Decision criteria, for example, that's one of the D's in Medic. So what's really important to them when hiring a candidate? That's a question you can openly ask to the hiring manager. What is important to you? What are you looking for in a candidate? What do you want your BDR or SDR to do? You have a team. You already have a team of 4 people. What challenges are they facing? What addition would you like to bring to the team? Why are you hiring? All these questions, insight, it means you're curious. You want to learn more about the team. You want to understand their challenges. And then when shares some challenges, you might be able to even say, "Oh, I've done that previously," or "That's something I actually work on in my spare time. I can definitely support the team, and bring in some new ideas and things." And that's also a way to show that you're a great team member. Decision process. So you can also understand better about, the steps. What steps am I going through? It's the first interviews, the screen with HR, second interviews with the hiring manager. Third interview might be a panel. The panel might actually have on board those people that are the economic buyers, as I was saying. So you might have the VP of sales, and he might be the last person to say yes or no. But we were focusing on the hiring manager without thinking about the larger sales org. Your champions as well, not only the hiring manager, AEs, BDRs internal to the company, referrals are super powerful. But if you didn't go through a referral, even just getting in touch and building that rapport with people that are going to be on that team that you want to be on, people talk. So if you make a good impression, they'll definitely let their manager know. So also that, try and communicate, use LinkedIn as a powerful tool because it definitely is. Identifying the pain, the I in medic, understand why they're hiring, what's not worked out. So, for example, a question I always used to ask when I was going through interview processes was, is this a is this a backfill? Did someone leave the team? Did someone get promoted? Or is this a growth opening? Are you guys growing as a company and looking to hire someone new? It's a very tactical question. You can understand a lot from that. If someone progressed, it means that it's a company that pushes people to progress into AE roles. If it's a backfill, someone left, they might have left for a better opportunity. They might have left for whatever the reason, but it's just something that you have in your back pocket and you know of. Or if it's a growth, you know that the company's growing, which is always a great sign because it means that, it's selling the product, which is what you really want to do. So it's a good question. Not a lot of people ask it, but I think it's someone told me about it, I'd say when I was interviewing years ago. And after they told me, I was like, you know what, I really like this question and I'm going to incorporate that when I do interview. Your champion, as I said, C and medic for interviewing, super important. As I said, AEs, hiring manager, whoever that may be, the recruiter that you're going through from a third party organization. You need to make sure you make them, your champion. Build that report, share relevant wins, ask for insights into what resonates with the decision makers, especially if it's a recruiter. They will want you to succeed. So use them to your advantage as well. Build that rapport and also with people internal because they're part of the team, so they know what's going on. And then obviously the C is competition. I don't tend to ask about other candidates, to be very honest with you. But a way I like to position it is, I know you guys are interviewing, and I'm completely sure that there are a lot of candidates out there that have applied. But what is missing, for example, you've interviewed up until now. is there something you've noticed that's missing from other candidates that you've met so far? Could be a good question to ask and see, who are you going up against? So in the end of the day, MEDDIC is a framework that you use in sales, but it can also be very relevant in the interview process because in the end of the day, you're positioning yourself to a company and you are the product and they are the buyer. And you want to do a good job to prove to them what is the return of investment that they'll get on you. And when you start positioning yourself that in interviews, you're already using that sales mindset. You're already tactically using something that realistically you use more within an AE role, but that will show that you've learned about the product, you've learned about the customers, you've learned about MEDDIC in your own way, and you might not be might not know the ins and outs of it all. I'm not even a full-grown expert of it. There's so much more I can learn, but utilizing that common language within sales is really important because it just shows that you've taken the time to want to learn more. So that's definitely something else that I would apply when you're interviewing. And as I said, AI can really help you there. So you can go on ChatGPT and say, okay, this is my CV. You can put it on ChatGPT, and then you can say, give me a medic of my CV. I'm hiring for this company. Give me a brief medic of myself, and it will give you your metrics based on your CV if you've applied any numbers or any data. Or you can ask ChatGPT for ideas. Okay, I was I don't know, a sales representative, but in retail. So what metrics could I apply that are relevant to what I've done and can be relevant when I'm positioning myself as a leader in this space or someone who's had previous experience, not in tech sales, but in retail. There's so much you can relate. Hospitality, I worked in a restaurant. There's so many metrics I could have brought when I was interviewing for a BDR role. Time management, that's definitely a metric. I was facing customers that were angry and stressed, and I had to make sure that they had the best experience. And at the end, they'd walk out there happy because they'd then leave feedback. And even if it was hard to, keep a straight face and say, I absolutely understand, and maybe it was their fault, but you couldn't say so. You wanted to make sure that they thrived in that restaurant experience. And then once they walked out, they were happy enough to give you 5 stars. Um, so definitely do look into that. And then Sesame, I mentioned at the start. Sesame is a new tool that I found. It's an AI, it's like a phone call. So you literally are speaking to a robot. The voice is scarishly like really human. But what I've done, I'd say specifically today, is I told her, hey, I'm gonna be outbounding to you. I'm an AE, you're a prospect. You have to tell her that she's busy, she has no time. These are her main concerns and pain points. We have to role play, and my aim is to book a call with you. And I swear, yes, it's a robot, so realistically, calls aren't always going to be the same, but it's a great way to speak to someone, try to handle an objection. She's pretty good. She actually turns pretty sassy as well. So if you are uncomfortable speaking to people, it's a good way to break the ice and speak to something that is very human and also a bit sassy. And even I was at a certain point, I was like, whoa, how am I going to answer to this one? Like, I've never heard that one before, but it's a really good objection. And it can be a good way to train yourself, I guess. And you can position it, as I said, AI learns from you. So as long as you give her key instructions, she can sort of be what you want her to be on, the process. So like a VP or a sales manager, whoever you're sort of selling into. So obviously based on the research of the company you want to go for as well, you can train her to be that role play for you, and it just helps you maybe break the ice prior to that call with the hiring manager. So that's also really important. But yeah, I don't know if anyone's feels like they want to unmute themselves and ask a question because I could go on for hours and hours about how important building your brand is. And in my podcast, I did say that not everyone is as extroverted, and I wouldn't say I'm extroverted, to be honest. I just really like social selling. I've always been a fan of Instagram, but Yasmin, for example, she's not like that, and she said that on the podcast as well. She's not too involved when it comes to LinkedIn and posting and stuff. Oh, great. We have a question. Go on.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Yusra. Thank you for having this meeting with us. I did want to ask you a question. You've given a lot of great examples on how to kind of succeed in cold calling, but I do also want to know, like, what common mistakes would you absolutely avoid while cold calling?
That's a good question. A- Cold calling's a funny one because it depends on the day, that the person's going through. It depends on how busy they may be. I think if you're cold calling specifically as an AE or a BDR, I would avoid certain days, for example. So Mondays and Fridays don't really work. People hate Mondays and Fridays. People are not concentrated on working. So that's how I go by when I'm sort of cold calling in my day to day. In terms of speaking, I think if you have someone who you can tell is busy, you literally want to keep it as tight as you can. So you want to understand if it's a common problem for them. You want to utilize the metrics. You want to name drop. You want to see if there's interest, but maybe you don't want to push too many questions in that moment. The aim in that moment is to set a meeting. You can even say it, look, I'm going to be really transparent with you here. I don't want to waste your time. I know you're really busy. You've made it really clear. So I think the best thing is maybe to book a call. Let's book a 15-minute call. I can walk you through what we do. And if it still resonates, we can move forward. And if it doesn't, we've had a chat, and we can talk about other things as well. We don't just have to focus on the product. So I think definitely that. Try to make it as concise and straightforward as possible, especially when you're talking to C-suite. Most of the time, they won't want to be on the phone. But it depends on a factor of things. It depends on the industry. When I speak to people in hospitality, they're a lot more open to wanting to converse versus possibly people in, I don't know, another sector that's maybe really busy and that it's just a less customer facing role, whatever the reason, or maybe they're, just in that moment they're going through payroll, whatever that may look like. So their main concern is the there and then. Um, but when you're speaking to C-suite, I think time is of essence. So keep the message short, keep it sweet, also make a bit of jokes. Like, don't be scared to smile if you obviously you get a feeling what the other side, who you have on the other side. But as I said, I believe that matching the energy is important. So, for example, I had a customer. He was very closed off. He thought salespeople were all liars. He had a really bad experience with another company. They just sold him a product and made him thousands of promises, and that was it. So when I went on the call, my job isn't just to demo a product. My job is to understand why you want to buy a product. My job is to understand are we a good fit? Because we might not be a good fit, and what's the point of you going through a demo, speaking to me if I'm not going to solve your issues? So I need to understand more about your business, and he was really serious, and I'm really friendly, but at the same time, I knew I needed to match the energy. So when you speak to someone and you can have a sense of how they relate to people, try to match that energy as well. So he was really serious, and I turned really serious. And I said, okay, I completely appreciate you don't want to go through a discovery again. But the way I work is like this. So I'm going to be really transparent here. I need to ask you a few questions. I need to understand about the business because otherwise I won't be able to show you the product. And he respected that and he opened up. We had that chat and he's bought the product in 5 days. So I think also matching energy when you're cold calling is super important. Try to understand who you have on the other side of the phone. And it can be a bit daunting, I guess, but I hope that sort of answers the question. But when it comes to cold calling, there's just so many factors that have a play.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That did answer my question.
No worries. Right, anyone else? Oh, we've got messages. Sorry, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, we have a message from Abdullah. So, when cold calling hiring managers to try and secure that first interview, what's the most effective way to structure the call? And do you have any tips for breaking the ice right at the start so it feels natural rather than scripted?
It's a good question. I think the way I like to open up my calls, obviously hiring managers are going to expect that, especially in sales. They know that people are going to pick up the phone or email them or LinkedIn them. First off, when it comes to calling them, the structure I like to follow is giving I'd say the opener is obviously, hi, I'm Sarah. How are you? I appreciate I'm calling out of the blue. I actually saw that you have an opening in deputy, and I was really keen just to have a chat with you. I could see you're the hiring manager. Do you have 10 minutes to talk? If you're busy, happy to call back another time. Or around the lines of, if I'm not a good fit, then we can just end the call and we've had a chat. The structure, obviously, it depends whether he says, yes, I'm free for a call, or shoot, you have 10 minutes, whatever that may be. Pitching yourself, as I said, use the medic structure, talk about the metrics. Say, look, I currently work at deputy. I've actually supported the team increase their average deal size. I've actually decreased the close rate, so it went down from 42 days to 10. And I've also managed to bring a consultative selling approach to the team rather than just focusing on features. Is that something that your team is currently doing? Ask questions. He might say, no, you know what? The feature piece. Yeah, a lot of my team are actually focusing more on the feature piece. So what's different? What do you do different? It gives you the opportunity to have open up a conversation. If you don't ask questions and you're simply pitching, then the person on the other side of the phone won't really have anything to say and the conversation will end fairly early. So you also want to be proactive. You want to ask those questions. You want to say, look, I appreciate that obviously I'm calling you out of the blue. Do you think it would make sense for me to send across my CV and book in some time to walk you through why I'm a good fit? Maybe we can use Medic as a framework and I can pitch you myself as a product and we can see what good return of investment I can bring to your organization. Um, be creative. Not many people do that. So you can use that to your advantage. Um, but yeah, I hope that answers the question. And another thing as well, do research. So when you see the hiring manager, see what university they went to, where they're from, what kind of posts they're posting. It might feel a bit stalkery, but it makes sense. So say, for example, I'm Italian. And if I see that our hiring manager is Italian, first thing I'm going to do is just say hi, literally in Italian. Or if they studied in the same university as me or a similar subject, I can use that as an icebreaker. I could say, oh, I saw you actually studied economics. Does that actually help you in sales? Because I think there are so many transferable skills that can be applied from economics to sales. But I'd love to hear from someone within the industry. Do you think it helps you in your day-to-day job? So definitely do research because LinkedIn's a good tool to utilize to see if there's something that you have in common. Even someone might have been years ago, might have worked as an SDR. You could say, oh, I want to apply for this SDR role. I can see you actually had SDR experience firsthand years ago. How did you find that? Was it the right, did you feel it was the right choice to make to then progress in tech sales? So literally research, question, open-ended questions, so important when you're prospecting and when you're going through the hiring process. Make it more of a conversation. And the structure, as usual, the opener is just going to be, look, do you have 10 minutes? Can I walk you through why I think I'm going to be a good fit for the team? Happy to schedule time if now's not a good time. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Sarah. So we also have Hamna who's asked a question. She's asking, how did you go past the introvert side of yourself for the cold calling interviews? And also, what is the name of your podcast?
So the introvert side, I'd say I was really, really closed. I didn't like speaking to people that much. I still don't like speaking in public, if that makes sense. I think that's something I can work on. But one day I decided that I was just going to try and not be shy. And I went to with university on like a trip and I started introducing myself randomly to people. And I was never one to want to make friends. I had my close circle. I didn't want to get to know everyone, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it and just people might ignore me and I'll just walk away because I'm never going to see them again anyway. So that was the first step that sort of helped me get over my introvert side and try to open up more. And it's sort of, I'd say, stuck. But when it comes to cold calling, I think the best way to do it is one, I didn't have AI. Use that. Use this Sesame. I'm happy to send the link. Like it can help because it gives you objections. You have someone that sounds like a human. It will help you break a bit of ice there. And then you just have to test and try because some are going to be bad, but it's better you learn from mistakes than not make them at all. And I've become a better salesperson thanks to all those terrible calls that sometimes I made. And if I think back at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, but they taught me something. So definitely don't give up. Keep on trying.
Just want to remind everyone that there is 10 minutes left. Sarah, what do you want to do? Do you want me to extend the call a little bit more? I can send another link.
If you want to do that, I'm happy to hop back on.
Guys, do you have any more questions that you want Sarah to answer? I'm just thinking. Okay, yeah, so it looks like there are a few more questions. So what I'll do is I will send another link and then get everybody back on.
Real.
Okay, fab.
In a bit.
See you guys in a few minutes.
Bye.
Bye.